I was the firstborn of 7 children in a humble, Christian household. My parents, Mama Uni and Papa Ba, raised us with love despite our modest means. Papa was a cook on a white man's ship, and his time at sea brought both sustenance and stories into our lives. Every 2 weeks, he'd return laden with provisions that brought joy and security to our home. Everything changed one Monday morning. Papa, rushing to the dock to board his ship, was struck by tragedy, a fatal car accident. The news shattered our family. Mama was given 30 million Nigerian nairas by Papa's ship captain, a gesture meant to safeguard our future. At first, it seemed like Mama was determined to manage the money wisely, but soon her true character surfaced. She squandered it on a luxurious lifestyle, expensive cars, and questionable relationships, leaving us in poverty when the funds ran dry. Our education was sacrificed, and we were forced into public schools with abysmal standards. Mama turned to a plantain business, which barely kept us fed. I, Felix, bore the brunt of her frustrations. Felix, do you think money grows on trees? Mama's sharp voice rang out, cutting through my doubt like a blade. Her eyes, hard with desperation, bore into mine as she leaned forward. Look at Obinna. He didn't sit around waiting for miracles. If he can do it, so can you. Her words echoed in my mind, fueled by her relentless comparisons. It didn't matter that I was barely out of my teens, or that I had no idea what lay ahead in the city. The weight of my family's survival crushed any resistance I felt. For Mama, this wasn't just an opportunity, it was salvation. When the day came to leave with Obinna, the mood at home was somber yet filled with hope. My siblings clung to me, their tiny hands gripping my shirt as though they could keep me tethered. Bring us sweets when you come back, brother, my youngest sister cried, her wide eyes shining with innocence. I forced a smile, nodding despite the lump in my throat. Obinna greeted me with a confident grin, his gold chain gleaming under the morning sun. This is it, little brother, he said, patting my shoulder. Stick with me, and you'll make it big. The journey to Lagos felt surreal. The bustling city, with its towering skyscrapers and endless noise, was unlike anything I had ever seen. Obinna's house was even more overwhelming, a mansion filled with luxury I couldn't comprehend. Yet behind the sparkle and glamour, a darkness lingered. I soon realized I wasn't stepping into a life of honest hard work, but into a world of deceit and danger. Each passing day brought more questions than answers. As Mama's demands grew louder, my doubts deepened, setting me on a path I could never imagine escaping. The city was alive, yet I felt like a ghost moving through it, a stranger in its bright chaos. Beneath the glittering lights and thumping music, there was an unsettling undercurrent, a darkness that seemed to whisper my name. This was Obinna's world, and I was stepping into its shadows. Obinna welcomed me into his mansion with a grin that hinted at secrets too heavy to bear. His home was sprawling, filled with boys like me, each glued to computers, their faces illuminated by dim blue screens. They were typing furiously, their eyes darting back and forth as though their lives depended on each keystroke. These are your new brothers, Obinna said, sweeping his arm dramatically. Learn fast, Felix, and you'll soon have all the money you've ever dreamed of. For weeks, I toiled. Obinna taught me the art of scamming, creating fake profiles, crafting heart-wrenching stories, and convincing strangers overseas to part with their money. It was a world of deception, and I was a clumsy student. I stayed up all night trying to pull in clients, but my inbox remained empty. The 2 iTunes gift cards I received in a month felt like crumbs compared to the feasts Obinna and his friends enjoyed. The frustration gnawed at me. Obinna and his crew barely lifted a finger, yet their wealth seemed endless. Night after night, they returned from clubs, trailing laughter and expensive perfumes, their wallets overflowing with cash. I stayed behind, the boy who wasn't yet worthy of joining their revelry. One evening, while I scrubbed their clothes in silence, Obinna's words from a drunken rant came back to haunt me, this hustle. It's not what you think, Felix. There's a shortcut, but it's not for the faint-hearted. What shortcut? I wondered. The answer began to unfold as whispers reached my ears. Some of the boys talked about an old man in the outskirts of town, someone who could turn poverty into wealth overnight. But the price is steep, one murmured. I couldn't stop thinking about it. When Obinna finally revealed the truth, my stomach turned. The wealth didn't come from scamming, it came from something far darker. As he described the ritual, his voice was calm, almost hypnotic. You think wealth comes easy, Felix? Nothing is free, my boy. Are you ready to pay the price? Those words echoed in my head, and the city, for all its light, seemed to grow darker still. The air in the shrine felt alive, thick with an unsettling energy that clawed at my senses. The native doctor's gaze was piercing, as though he could see into my soul. Lie in the coffin, he commanded, his voice a rumble that reverberated in my chest. My legs trembled, but I forced myself to comply. The coffin was cold, its interior lined with crimson fabric that seemed to mock the warmth of life. As I lay down, the lid closed, plunging me into darkness. My breathing quickened as the reality of my decision sank in. This was no ordinary ritual, this was a pact with forces beyond comprehension. The native doctor began to chant, his words unintelligible, yet they filled the space with an ominous power. I felt a searing pain shoot through my body, as though invisible hands were carving marks into my skin. My screams were swallowed by the coffin, echoing back at me as if mocking my plight. Time lost meaning in the darkness. Hunger gnawed at my stomach, but it was nothing compared to the visions that haunted me. Shadowy figures danced before my mind's eye, their laughter a chilling chorus. I saw flashes of wealth, gold coins, stacks of cash and mansions, but they were always accompanied by grotesque images of blood and despair. On the seventh day, the lid of the coffin creaked open, and light spilled onto my face. I squinted, my body weak and trembling. The native doctor stood over me, his expression unreadable. It is done, he declared. The spirits have accepted your sacrifice. As I struggled to sit up, he handed me a small mirror. My reflection startled me. My eyes were sunken, my skin pale and sallow. I looked like a man who had aged a decade in a week. The native doctor issued his warning with chilling precision, never leave your room after sunset. Always lock yourself in. And once a week, you must offer a woman to the spirits, or they will take from you instead. His words were a death knell to my humanity, but I was too consumed by the promise of wealth to care. I staggered out of the shrine, clutching the talisman he gave me. As Obinna helped me into the car, I wondered if he saw the fear in my eyes. My transformation had begun, and though I had gained everything, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had lost far more. The first time I woke to find blood smeared across my walls, I convinced myself it was a nightmare. But nightmares don't leave stains, and they certainly don't come with piles of cash. The old man's warning echoed in my mind, never leave your room at night. I thought it was superstition, a ploy to keep me obedient. But the reality was far worse. I wasn't just locked in with the curse, I was the curse. Every night, I transformed into something unspeakable. My human thoughts melted away, replaced by primal instincts and an insatiable hunger. It wasn't until Obinna confided in me that I understood the full horror. We are not human anymore, he said one night as we drank in the shadows of his dimly lit room. His face, usually brimming with arrogance, was heavy with despair. The wealth, the power, it's not free. Each of us has a beast inside, and the price is blood. The rituals aren't just deals, they're chains. I listened in silence, dread tightening around me. He explained how the transformation deepened with time. It wasn't just about locking myself away or sacrificing women. The beast inside me was growing stronger, harder to control. One night, the unthinkable happened. In my arrogance, I had neglected to lock the door securely. I woke up in the middle of the night in the middle of the street, blood dripping from my hands. Villagers cowered in their homes, peering through cracks in their windows. A dog lay dead in the middle of the road, its lifeless body mangled. The whispers began the next day. "He's cursed," they said. "He brought something back from the city." I couldn't deny it. The money that had once felt like a blessing now weighed on me like a tombstone. My mother still basked in the glow of our newfound wealth, but her joy felt hollow. She didn't know that each stack of cash carried the weight of lives I had destroyed. I became a prisoner in my own skin, terrified of what the night would bring. The money piled up, but so did the guilt, the shame, and the fear. I thought I wanted to be a savior to my family. Instead, I became their doom. And there is no escape from the beast I've become. The village was eerily silent that morning. Shadows lingered longer than they should have, as if nature itself recoiled from the horror I had unleashed. My mother's piercing scream broke the stillness, her voice trembling with a mix of terror and disbelief. I stumbled out of the room, my hands stained with blood, my vision clouded by tears. What have you done?" Mama stammered, her body shaking as she backed away from me. I couldn't answer. How could I explain the unexplainable? The memories of the night before were fragmented, flashes of my transformation, primal rage, and the helpless cries of my victims. I had become the monster the native doctor warned me about, a beast cursed to feast on the innocent in exchange for wealth I could no longer bear. The villagers gathered quickly, their faces a mixture of curiosity and dread. Whispers swept through the crowd like wildfire. Someone pointed at me. "It's him. The demon who attacked the livestock and killed the trader's son." I froze. My worst fears had come true, my secret was no longer mine. My once proud mother, who had paraded me as the savior of our family, now looked at me like a stranger, a monster. In a desperate attempt to explain, I fell to my knees. "Mama, I did it for us, for you, for my siblings. I didn't know it would come to this. Please, believe me." Her eyes, once filled with love and pride, were now cold, unrecognizable. "You sold your soul for money, Felix," she spat, tears streaming down her face. "You've brought shame and death to this family." The crowd began to close in, their murmurs turning to shouts. Some demanded justice, others wanted to drive me out of the village. Panic surged within me. I turned and ran, their voices echoing behind me. For hours, I wandered aimlessly through the forest, the weight of my choices pressing down on me. I couldn't return to the city. Obina had lured me into this nightmare, and I now knew there was no escape from the curse. As night fell, I found myself at the edge of a cliff overlooking the vast wilderness. The beast inside stirred, hungry for its next victim. Tears streamed down my face as I realized the only way to protect others from the monster I had become. With one final breath, I stepped forward, hoping to find peace in the silence of the abyss.